I'm going to share my screen with you guys. All right. So what we're going to go over tonight, starting out, now save all your questions for the end. So keep a pen and paper, jot stuff down as we go through this. But by the time we get through this, be pretty close to bedtime, I would imagine, for most of you. All you got to do then is make it to bed, and you're going to feel great tomorrow. So tonight, let me just make sure I got everybody. Okay. Kind of going over the nitty gritty with the fasting. There is going to be some new content in this go around. Some of you have done this before, some of you have not. I can guarantee you guys, every time I teach this, though, I've never taught just the same way twice, because I'm always learning what I do it and making new connections. So even if you might have heard a lot of this before, some of you have read the book a few times. Like I said, I'm still learning this stuff every time I teach it. So just connect new dots within your head as we go through this. About 45 minutes, empty the cup, pour out what you got in your brain as far as what you think you know about this stuff. It's going to not be the mainstream. It's not going to be what you've heard about dieting before, any of that stuff. We're going to go over stubborn fat. We're going to go over hormones, normal dieting, like the traditional North American diet, different protocols. And again, at the end, I will go over questions. Here are some problems that we have, if you're on a typical North American diet. Can't wait for the diet to be over. If that's the case, you know that your brain is never going to form a habit around it. So you might as well never even start it. Your brain won't form a habit around anything it doesn't find pleasurable. So that's a main mind map principle. It's too restrictive. You feel a lack of willpower. Again, if anything that's purely willpower based goes against forming habits, that part of your brain uses energy like glucose. By the end of the day, that part is shot. So if it's purely willpower based, it's not going to stick. It's never a permanent change. This is yo-yo dieting that most people do, up and down, up and down, up and down. It is too complex and too confusing. That's the problems with traditional diets. This is not a diet that you will be doing. The question you have to ask then is, how do we make this more simple, clear, and permanent? So the story of how I came upon fasting. That was me in I think the Morristown Memorial Hospital, and that was my left knee that time. First time blowing out my patella tendon, really bad knee injury, pretty gruesome. Actually, I gave a presentation this week, and I actually put a picture of the knee up during surgery. It was pretty gross, but I won't do that to you guys. But that picture, so it was 2012, decided that my wife, Devin, she had never seen me compete in bodybuilding. I hadn't competed since 2008 at that point. I said, no, I want to put this injury behind me. I want to prove that my leg is perfectly fine. I'm going to compete again. So this picture up here, the bodybuilding picture, that's one of the shows I did in 2014. The reason I put this up, it was getting ready for that show. While doing research and reading, I was about 8 weeks out from the contest, that this concept, and I'd heard of fasting before, obviously, right? But I always thought, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm going to lose too much muscle, blah, blah, blah. But it was really at that point that this concept of fasting stuck with me. So what I was reading, so for men, typically, our stubborn fat patterns, typically, this could be reversed. I've seen it reversed in men and women. Is going to be our belly, like our lower abdomen, our love handles. For women, it's typically the glutes and the thighs. That's not 100% of the time, but that's pretty spot on. So anyway, I'm doing research, reading this book by this guy, Lyle McDonald, and he's talking about the stubborn fat cells. So stubborn fat is a different type of fat cell receptor. It doesn't get a good blood supply. It's a very poor blood supply. If we look at how fat loss happens, there's 3 stages. You have to mobilize the fat, transport it. And then wherever you transport it, whatever muscles you're transporting to, you use it, utilize it. So MTU, mobilize, transport, utilize. If you can't mobilize and get the blood in to get the fat out, you can't lose the fat. So my sole purpose for starting the fasting at that point, and I noticed an immediate benefit as far as my hunger levels and my mindset and everything. It just felt very liberating, even though I was pretty much still starving myself, for lack of a better term. I was only eating 1,600 calories a day, but I split that. I went from 4 meals down to 2. So I started doing a 16-hour fast. It was really to just get the last little bit of fat I had on me off of me. So that's how I came upon fasting. And I knew I was onto something as far as just health and just how I was feeling and how simple it was. That's the story. That's, again, going back to 2014. So about 8 years experience with this now. Throughout the course, I'll be teaching you guys different mind map stuff. And the whole Panda program, when you read the book, some of it's pretty subtle. Some of it, I pretty much say this is a mind map principle. But it's a combination of the fasting protocols that I believe in, that I've developed. I work for myself first, right? I tested it on myself, and then you guys and different clients, and mind mapping, because it's all about you forming a habit. What mind map is the science of habit formation. It's literally the science of how your brain forms a habit. And I think it's important for you guys to be aware of this stuff and to notice stuff, so you can connect the dots. You can see where you're getting tripped up. And out of the 12 steps, right? So I'll go through these quickly right now. We're not going to go over too much mind map stuff tonight. It's going to be more fasting based, but safety, right? So provide safety. So in this 6 weeks together, my job as your coach is to give you this safe environment where you know I'm not going to tell you to do something that's going to harm you, right? You're not going to get judgment from anybody in this group, but provide safety. Once you feel safe, you can start exploring. And the exploration really is where it's going to start leading to some clarity. Your brain needs clarity to latch on to something and to stick with something. So once you start exploring and you say, oh, I did a 48 and I actually felt more energy. I didn't feel too bad. Now you start getting clarity on what this is actually going to do for you. Then understanding leads to belief, belief to trust, trust to action, action to change. And I'll post these slides again out in the group, guys. So, you'll have all the slides right there too. But definitely take notes on it if you want. Change leads to habit, habit to transformation, transformation to growth. And once you hit that point, growth is going to lead you back to new threats. You start over because now you're going to focus on something else. You're going to take on this new thing that you want to form a habit around. But we all have these steps we go through. But the one I wanted to highlight really is the exploration is going to allow for clarity. Explore during the 6 weeks. Try different protocols. Try doing longer fasts if you want than 48. Bounce ideas off of me. Bounce ideas. There's people in this group that have had a lot of experience with this. Bounce ideas off of them. Really use it to explore. So at the end of this 6 weeks, you and I and the group, but you and I can make sure you have a plan to continue with moving forward. All right, if you have a pen and paper, I want you to get clear on your reasons for doing this right now. So I'm going to take you through the 5, 6, 7 exercise. And one of the things that's going to trip your brain up is if you don't have clarity. If you think you're doing this just to lose weight, or you're doing this, that's majority of the times people do this. If you think you're doing it just to put on muscle, there's deeper reasons. So with the 5, 6, 7, what you're going to do, and this is a speed game because I don't want you to overthink this. I want you to write down, why are you doing this? Just write down the first thing that comes to your mind, like 2, 3 words. Write it down. Now, so that's number 1. What you're going to put next is down the same side column, 2 through 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, it's going to be rapid fire. So you have that first answer. Let's say I want to lose 20 pounds. Now what you're going to do for number 2, why? Why do you want to lose that 20 pounds? Write down that answer. For number 3, why number 2? So maybe number one was I want to lose 20 pounds. Why? I want to feel better in my clothes. Why do you want to feel better? I want more confidence. So you're going to go all the way down through 7. I'm going to give you 1 minute to do this. And that's actually a lot of time for this game. 1 minute. Keep asking yourself why for the answer previous. Why do you want that? Why is that important to you? You're on the clock. Twenty seconds. All right. So the 5, 6, 7, those are the deeper reasons why you're doing this. I want you to think of them as like your focus magnets. What you focus on, guys, what you focus on is how you feel. Think about that. What you focus on is how you feel. So if we're using the fasting as the subject, you can either focus on, okay, I want to lose this amount of weight, and man, I don't like this feeling of not being able to have food whenever I want it. Or you could focus on the 5, 6, 7. Your focus is like a flashlight. Where you put it is the results that you're going to get. And that's going to determine how you feel. So you can instantly shift your brain and reframe by going from, because if it's just a superficial, if it's just number 1 or number 2, which most people never really think beyond, as soon as you get uncomfortable or you get fatigued, you're going to want to throw in the towel with anything, with any habit you're trying to form. You're going to say, forget this. I can go have my donuts for lunch, whatever. That's fine. The 5, 6, 7 is what you have to remind yourself, print it up, put a picture like I have in my family of constantly redirecting your attention to that. Okay. So that is your 5, 6, 7. Where your attention goes, energy flows, and results will follow. Where your attention goes, energy flows, and results will follow. Let's go over a little diet strategy. I put diet in quotes just so we all are familiar with that term. So we're talking about diet. We're talking about your approach to fasting for us. You can have the I want to. That's the infantile ego. You want to lose 20 pounds. You want this. You want that. That is a child's way of thinking. Doesn't matter what you want. I have to. That doesn't work either. When somebody's putting pressure on you to do this or to do anything, and I always give the example, we've had plenty of clients that they're doctors who are clients of ours as well, send them to us, but they don't really want to do it. They're being told they have to do it. It doesn't work. They don't last very long. And the I will mindset, this is the champions. This is what we call the achievement mindset. I will do this. I will do this. And that tattoo I have there on my wrist is do what you said you would do. So this is something I try to live by, guys. I try to live and try to help you guys by reminding you of this, trying to help you as far as leading by example. Do what you said you would do. I will. No more I want to. I have to. I have to. It's a control. Your brain doesn't like when it's put in a box, right? One of the key ingredients for happiness within the human brain is freedom to move about, to have choice. I have to takes away your choice. So, and some of this stuff is going to take work on your part to just be mindful of the thoughts, the dialogue that's going on up here, catching yourself and redirecting. And I go through the same thing with different things in my life, guys. So I'm telling you from a place that I'm still go through this just like you guys do. Right. But it's constantly being able to control, okay, where are my thoughts? Boom. Redirect my thoughts over here. So these are psychology of diet strategy. 3 keys to success before we dive into some of the fasting stuff. This is your choice. Remind yourself of that daily. It's a choice. You could stop this at any moment. You could stop. You can. So you have a choice. I don't have a gun to your head. Appreciate your feast. So this is going to be feasting or fasting. This is not fasting and then eat a little diet meal. And your cheat days, right? I recommend you take one day and do whatever the heck you want. I usually recommend Sunday, but that's up to you. And I'm talking about when you're at home in your regular routine, not when you're on vacation or not when it's the holidays or something like that. But you don't deserve them, right? Make sure that you earn them. That you're not, okay, I'm just going to eat some peanuts during the day, but that's not doing what you said you would do. It's about the reflection of who you are being. Okay, it's really about you holding up the mirror to yourself. So let's get into some of the fasting science. We talked about the stages of fat loss. To remind you, to mobilize means to mobilize like mobile. You got to keep mobile, be able to move. You have to get the blood in to get the fat out. You have to be able to get the blood in to get the fat out. With those stubborn fat areas that we all have, if you take your hand and you touch them, the back of your hand or your palm, you touch those areas skin to skin, you're going to notice that they're colder than the rest of your body. That is because what I just taught you guys about, it's a different type of receptor, fat cell receptor, that doesn't have a good blood supply. So we fix that by fasting. And fasting, guys, is tremendous as far as cutting down on what's called visceral fat. So if you do your in-body at the Hillsborough gym, the Flemington one doesn't measure visceral. The visceral fat is the fat that is around your organs. Very dangerous type of fat. It's a stress response. Like your body will lay that down because most of the time we have too much stress up here and we're tired and we're not getting enough sleep. But your brain and your body still respond as if you're under physical attack. So what it does, it increases certain hormones and it packs fat down around those organs to protect them from this perceived attack. When you got fat around your liver, you got fatty liver, you got fat around your kidneys, you got fat getting up around the heart, not good, guys. So fasting is tremendous at hitting those areas and our stubborn fat areas. The main hormone that we want, that we do want to control, but that we are controlling through fasting is insulin. To give you a little bit of background on insulin. Insulin is a storage hormone. It's the most anabolic hormone in the human body. Anabolic means to grow. That can be muscles at times, but for most people, when we're eating constantly, it's making your fat cells grow. So insulin, as soon as we eat, insulin is released. And it signals your body, it does a couple things. It signals your body to hold on to, because insulin's main job is when blood sugar starts going up after a meal. Insulin is there, it's released by your pancreas to keep blood sugar from going too high. So insulin says, you go here, you go here, you go here. And it's kind of passing off these nutrients and the blood glucose to different cells within your body. I'll come back to insulin in a second. Insulin is pretty much the master hormone, if I had to pick one, in the human body. It affects every other hormone in the body. They all do, but insulin is like a master hormone. Now, cortisol, you might have heard of before. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's an alertness hormone. It gets a bad rap. You know, they used to make, they probably still do, infomercials about cortisol and how it gets you this beer belly. And it can, when it's chronically elevated alongside insulin. Insulin and cortisol are supposed to have an opposing relationship. One is high, the other should be low. We don't want them, and nor is it for the human body, they can't really both be high at the same time unless you're jamming food into your mouth constantly, stress eating when you're stressed. Cortisol, it's the hormone that wakes us up in the morning. If we woke up naturally in the morning, it's because of cortisol. Cortisol should be peaking in the ideal environment of the human body, let's say around 6 a.m. The most stressful time of the day for the human body is when we wake up in the morning. We're going from sleeping to waking up. We have to get our bearings, right? Your brain wants patterns. It wants to locate threats. It wants to know what's going on. Is everybody safe? So cortisol, it needs to be elevated to function. This is part of the reason people love coffee in the morning, right? Coffee is like a comfort food, but it's really to get you alert, to amplify. But when this stuff starts rocking and rolling, you could do coffee as a comfort food, but you won't need it. If you're getting your rest and you're doing this, you won't need it. And it won't really do anything to you beyond what this stuff can do for you. So cortisol. Now, if we let cortisol continue to rise in the first parts of the day, meaning we didn't eat, what's going to happen towards the back end of the day is growth hormone is going to spike. Growth hormone is profound at its ability to help us utilize body fat. It's profound at keeping the skin young and just the organs young and the brain young. So growth hormone can really dramatically spike, like I said, up to 2,000 to 3,000% over baseline when we start getting into like a 1 meal a day protocol or the 48-hour fast. Now imagine if you're doing this week after week after week. Fasting just continues to have this compounding effect. Now let's say you're like 95% of the population. You wake up and eat breakfast within an hour or two from waking up. Insulin goes up, cortisol comes back down. You've just jammed yourself up for the day as far as weight loss or health benefits goes. Insulin resistance, guys, is the root of every single disease known to mankind. Insulin resistance. Insulin resistance and inflammation are really one and the same thing. So insulin resistance, you might have heard that term before, is really when you become too insulin resistant, you become type 2 diabetic, which, by the way, is completely reversible. Your body, if you're eating the wrong stuff, eating too often, you're not getting enough sleep, your body will start to resist the effects of insulin. Okay, it starts to resist. So now what happens, you needed 100 units of it, let's say, for your normal day. Now you need 110 units, then 120, till eventually it can't produce enough, or the pancreas just stops producing. So what do the doctors do in that case? They're going to put you on insulin, which makes the problem worse. Your body's already resistant to it. We don't want to go down that path as far as becoming type 2 diabetic. If you are, we want to reverse it. We want to reverse it. You're going to do that through fasting. Insulin goes up, cortisol comes back down. And that, by the way, is the concept, the theory behind post-workout recovery shakes. Working out is a stress on the body. Cortisol, amongst other hormones, is going to be elevated after a workout. So people say, go have a shake, put some simple carbs in there. And I used to do this when I was competing. The insulin would drive the cortisol back down. And at that point, you are more insulin sensitive. We want you to be more insulin sensitive. Working out is great for that. Sleep is great for that. Fasting is great for that. When you become more sensitive to the effects of insulin, you have a much better profile as far as when I'm eating this stuff, it's less likely to go get stored as fat. So the more insulin sensitive you become, the better off you are for long-term body fat or weight loss and maintaining it. Insulin sensitive. Now, when we're talking about the hormones, I'm going to mention glucagon too, because a fear that people have with fasting is that I'm gonna get low blood sugar. I'm gonna get the shakes. I'm gonna get this and that. Glucagon is a hormone that keeps blood sugar from going too low. We all have this, unless you have a disease where you don't produce glucagon. So you're not going to get low blood sugar. You would die if your blood sugar just kept plummeting. So glucagon will kick in, and glucagon also has to be elevated to lose fat, to change our body that way. But insulin and glucagon are not going to exist together. So that's another thing with it. Now, your brain function, guys, your brain function should get greatly enhanced while fasting for many reasons. The simplest is you're going to have a lot more time where you're not interrupted to stop to eat. So when you focus on something for an extended period of time, you're going to get more results. You can be more efficient with it. Now, the hormones I mentioned, growth hormone, adrenaline, epinephrine, all these things are elevated when we're fasting. They all create this supercharged brain. Fasting also increases something called BDNF. So BDNF is it's a hormone. It's a compound. Think of it as fertilizer for the neurons in your brain. Fasting now that actually shows increases levels of BDNF in your brain, which is awesome. Many implications as far as dementia, things of that nature, Alzheimer's, all that stuff, how effective fasting is at clearing out plaques that build up in your brain, all these things. So fasting is fantastic for your brain health. And you should notice that you get much sharper. You're not going to get a fog. Now, the first day or two, if that happens again, that's just a withdrawal symptom. That's not going to be the norm, though. Digestion should greatly improve. Digestion is not something that is meant to take place constantly. You're either in a fed state or a fasted state. Now, when we eat, it takes 6 hours after the meal to get back into a fasted state. 6 hours. To think of most people that you know, they're hardly ever in a fasted state. Hardly ever. So when we start giving the gut a break, inflammation in the stomach is going to go down. Our neurotransmitters, which is really a lot of the transmitters that help our brain function, like serotonin, things of that nature. 80% of our neurotransmitters are produced in our gut. Another reason that your brain health is going to improve. If we're constantly bombarding our digestion and our gut with food, no good. No good for the bacteria down there, no good for the neurotransmitters, no good for energy. At the mastermind where I was at this weekend, my buddy Vince was telling everybody, because everybody gets sluggish after lunch at these things. I just never eat lunch at these things. And he's joking. He knows, I do the fasting and I've helped him with it and all that. He said, why do you think he has so much energy all the time and you guys are all sluggish? When you eat, it takes a tremendous amount of energy to digest. Right? So when people say, I need energy, I got to go eat. Well, you're not getting energy from when you're eating. You're going to get sluggish. You're going to get tired. Your body is going to have to shift its focus to digesting now. Now, if you're trying to work and you're trying to stay focused, you're trying to work out and you got food in your gut, guess what? That doesn't really jive. Your body has all these different systems within the body, and digestion takes up a tremendous amount of energy. But digestion will improve. Things like hydrochloric acid, okay, main digestive enzyme, that'll improve. And autophagy. So what autophagy is, guys, from a health point of view, is when your body goes through and eats up damaged parts of cells. It'll start clipping them off and getting rid of them from the body. That'll start happening. Research shows like between 20 and 24 hours in a fasted state. Let's talk about normal dieting. When you traditionally diet and you cut calories, your main hunger hormone, right? Because if you see on the left side of the screen, I have a little bit about your basal metabolic rate. Your metabolism can go up and down. But when you cut calories, like most diets, your metabolic rate is going to lower to match what you're putting in. Okay, you're going to cut some more. Boom. Well, it's going to lower again, maybe a week later, maybe a couple of days later, till eventually you can't cut any more food. And if food is your main energy source for the body, right? Food's a drug. You got to remember that. Eventually you're going to crash, because while the metabolism's coming down, your main hunger hormone, ghrelin, is continuing to go up. So now you have metabolism slowing down. You're getting hungrier and more hungry and more hungry. You ain't going to stick with it. You're going to blow it. Your metabolism has downshifted. You go back to eating normal or more than that because you've set up this state in the body, and you're going to wind up fatter and heavier than when you began. This is what we've seen throughout the years. If you just look around in society, you look at Oprah. Oprah was a great example of that. Every different diet you could think of. And she would struggle. She would do her best, but this is exactly what was going on. An important thing to think about when you're changing your body. So even if weight loss wasn't a goal, we want to, something I'm going to go over next lesson with you guys is the formula really of how fasting increases your vitality. So how fasting increases your vitality, but we need to have the blood cleared out of like things like mucus and all this garbage from eating so much. So this analogy I always give is if you got your freezers down in the basement, you got your box freezers, and you got your fridge or freezer upstairs. The freezers in the basement represent your stored energy, your body fat. We all want to get to that right away, right? When people say, I want to lose weight, well, they think in this, what's been called the simultaneous model. I'm going to cut this, I'm going to burn this amount, and I'm going to lose weight. That might work temporarily until your body figures out what you're doing. Then it doesn't work. The sequential model, it's a sequence. You have to empty that fridge that's upstairs. Once that's empty, you can come down to the box freezers and start pulling food out. Those box freezers represent your stored body fat, which I'm going to go over more in a second. Every time you open that fridge door upstairs, the light goes off. That's like a shot of insulin. Boom, 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 just keeps going off, signaling your body to store. Right? So if we only open that fridge once a week and we don't keep putting stuff in it, eventually it's going to empty out. So we're looking at really what's going on with the hormones within the body. Why have you guys been told this? Why was I told this? Why was I taught this in college and in all the bodybuilding magazines? A very much true lack of expertise of how the human body has evolved and how it's designed to function and eat. A big lack of expertise in the medical field and in the fitness field. Marketing, you always got to trace the dollar, but look at the food industry. They want you to eat more. Look at the pharmaceutical industry. They want you to eat more because you're going to become less healthy. Right? When people tell me, and this is kind of an aside, people would tell me, well, I'm eating good. I'm eating clean. I'm eating healthy. And I say, well, how many times are you eating though? It doesn't matter how, I would rather you eat healthy food versus not healthy food majority of the time. But if you're eating 3-4 times a day, the reason these people can't make progress is because they're constantly spiking insulin, right? So where I was going with that, the more often you eat, as a general rule, the less healthy you are, the better it is for the big pharma industry. Think about that. And it puts the blame on you. And I used to do this when I was first starting out. I would write these fancy diets out and measure, everything would be weighed. And this is how much you got to eat of this. This is how many macros, carbs, fat, and protein, which you will never have to really think about in this program. If you live this lifestyle, I couldn't tell you the last time I measured anything or whatnot. But I would say, okay, man, Louis says he's following the plan. If he's following the plan, he should be losing weight. He's not losing weight. So I said, he must be lying. It just doesn't work. Because I didn't know hormonally what was going on with him or how to help him fix that. Misconceptions about fasting. Starvation mode. People are going to tell you that you're going to go into starvation mode. You are not. The way you go into starvation mode, what they're talking about, where your body holds onto and stores more fat, is traditional dieting, what I just broke down for you. When we fast, we actually decrease our main hunger hormone, ghrelin. Metabolism actually goes up, especially when we're doing longer fasts. The exact opposite effect than what happens when we diet the normal way. People are going to tell you you're going to lose muscle. This was a fear of mine when I first started. Part of the reason when I first hear about this, oh man, I got to, I'm going to lose muscle. I can't. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Sandy, they could hear me. Hormones, again, what goes on tonight is a lot about just a hormone basis for you guys. When you fast, growth hormone goes way up. Okay. It's going to preserve muscle mass. You're going to get more insulin sensitive, makes it easier to put on muscle. The precursor, something called LH, luteinizing hormone, for testosterone, goes up. So you optimize maintaining muscle in your body when you fast. If we were going to fast and lose all our muscle right away, that goes against the very mind map principles of survival. But everything your body and your brain does is for survival first. So if you had to go out and hunt for food back thousands, hundreds of years ago, and gather berries and travel miles to go find the food, and your brain function was going to go down and you were going to lose muscle, you wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be here today. Those things had to get enhanced to a large degree when we fasted for a couple of days. And you do not need to eat frequently to speed up the idea of speeding up the only way you're going to speed up your metabolism is if you start eating a lot more than you are. And this is something I've experimented with. Most people have experimented with their metabolism lowering from cutting calories. You can raise it by eating more. Up regulate or down regulate 40% your metabolic rate. Let's talk about some obstacles you are going to face, because this is going to come up. First of all, you have to reframe. So reframing is about focus with your brain. Your body fat is food. That's mainly what it is. Your body fat is a food source. Every pound of fat we have contains, as far as energy, 3,500 calories. The only reason I'll ever mention calories is just because it is a unit of energy, right? It's a unit of energy. So if you want to lose 10 pounds of body fat, that means you have to give your body a reason to burn up 35,000 calories. It's never going to tap into that food source if you're constantly spiking insulin. The second thing I want you to be aware of is food is a drug. It affects the internal, biochemical, and hormonal environment of your body. When you eat, take some blood work right before you eat and right after. See what happens with your blood work. It's going to be dramatically different. Unless you're more insulin sensitive, then it won't change that much. But food's a drug. Roadblocks that you're going to face. Hunger pangs. So I just did a Rip Dad's lesson right before you guys. And one of the guys, now he's a larger individual, but he lost 21 pounds in the first week. So he's already done a 4-day fast. I said, okay, Josh, tell everybody just so they know, because he had a question about how long he could go for. If he totaled up to 4 days, I said, how many minutes would you estimate that you had hunger pangs? And he's new to fasting, right? Because this gets easier and easier over time. He said, over the 4 days, maybe 15 minutes. That's it. And the reason I'm telling you that is when some people, their brain will panic as soon as they feel a hunger pang. I got to eat. You don't have to eat. Hunger is a hormone. That's something I'll teach you in another lesson. Hunger is really a feeling. Okay, appetite is your ability to eat. I base stuff more off your appetite. Hunger is going to be swinging all over the place by when you've trained your body, entrainment, that's what that is. When you've trained your body over the years to expect food, it's going to be, hunger is going to be dictated by emotions, by sleep, by lack of sleep. So we don't go based on that. And other people are going to tell you that you're crazy, that you shouldn't be doing this. Listen to me. If they haven't done this before, throw their advice right out the window, right? And especially if you didn't ask for their advice. That's a main mind map principle. The brain does not like when it gets advice from somebody unwarranted because it perceives it as judgment. Judgment is very threatening to the brain. But those are going to be the main roadblocks. All you got to do is trust me and the group for the next 6 weeks. Now, the juice. This is critical that you guys are drinking this. Now, if you don't like the taste of it, we have juice pills at the gym, which we used when we did the Mount Washington climb 2 weekends ago. We were popping those things like crazy. Really helped. It's really the same thing, but what I do most of the time, I mix up the juice. So what does this do? These are your main electrolytes. The sea salt is your sodium. The low salt or new salt is really your potassium. And the baking soda is another form of sodium that's really good for your kidney function and making your body more alkaline. You want to do 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon in every 32 to 40 ounces. And I put this up in the group, so the recipe is up there. Salt, I'm not going to go too much into in tonight's lesson. So many positive effects as far as digestion, brain function, making you more insulin sensitive. In every cell in your body, guys, every single cell has a sodium and potassium pump where it's exchanging these two electrolytes constantly. Being that we've been told to go low salt or we're just not getting enough nutritious food that might have enough potassium in it, these pumps become sluggish. And that can slow your metabolism down, even if you're eating a large amount, which we don't want. It is going to make you feel less energy when you're not having enough sodium in your body. So this is the drink. You can also have black coffee, regular tea, at least for the first few weeks. I want you to be pretty strict with this when it's time to fast. So the meal structure, fruit first. Okay. Fruit is really the only food that we eat that is basically alive. Okay. It's alive, meaning if you're eating animal meat, it's dead flesh. Just think about that for a second. It's dead flesh. How many nutrients, active nutrients, do you think are in animal protein? And I'm not saying never to have it, but you're not getting many nutrients at all from animal flesh. Vegetables, most of the time, people cook them. We're destroying so many enzymes in them. Not saying don't do that. I'm just saying the only food that we consistently can eat that's really alive to nourish the body is fruit. Fruit is super important. By far, the most important category of food is fruit, that we make sure we get that in. Even if you weren't going to fast and you asked me for a nutrition tip, I would say eat more fruit. That would be the main thing I could tell people, have the biggest impact on people. But anyhow, you guys want to eat this first. It's digested further down in the intestines. It's going to stretch your stomach as it passes through there, which is already going to start signaling your brain to, hey, take your time. But one of the things with mind map in eating is if you don't have time to eat the meal in peace, don't eat it. We want to eat nice and slow. Take your time, right? If you can't enjoy the meal and eat at a nice pace, skip the meal. You're better off. You see, I have micronutrients there. That's you'll hardly ever hear me refer to macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat. It doesn't matter. What we're concerned about is the micronutrients, the little nutrients within the food, the different things like zinc, different vitamins that are within your food. That's what we're concerned about. Your main meal, once you eat your fruit. Again, this is when you're at home. When you go out to eat, do whatever the hell you want. This is to make your life better, not to take away stuff that you might like to do. Did it come from the ground? If it did, it's pretty much fair game. Potatoes and veggies, rice and beans. As far as the animal meat, I like to limit that now. I'll eat that personally, maybe 3 times a week, sometimes less. There's been weeks where I haven't had any animal meat. Again, thinking from my background with bodybuilding, where that was all I used to eat. But, I look at what it does to the body now. I look at the research I've done, and I feel pretty good at telling you guys, just be mindful of it. And by nature of your fasting, you're already going to cut way down on it as it is. But if it came from the ground, good to go. And dessert, I will put up the overnight oats recipe in the group. Some of you have done this before. That's a nice little dessert when you're at home. This is pretty much what I do on a regular night. But the oats, if you're still hungry afterwards, you can have them soaking in like almond milk or whatnot, and boom, you're ready to go. And you should be pretty full. But when you guys eat, I want you to be full at the end of the meal. You cannot overeat when you're doing this program. You can't do it. Again, I've told people before, I've tried, I've experimented. You can't do it. Final notes. I want you to pay attention to your sleep. I always mention that sleep is the king. There's no way around that fact. You need your sleep. It's the greatest diet in the world. It's going to affect all the hormones, even more so than fasting, is sleep. So get your sleep squared away. If you have trouble sleeping, we can go over supplements next lesson and whatnot, but get in your bedroom by, I would say, 10:30 at the latest. I don't care if you're sleeping yet, just get into the bedroom, do what you got to do. And then we'll start chipping away. Remember, habits are about small little steps. Give it 2 weeks. This is new for a lot of you. Give it 2 weeks. See how you feel in 2 weeks. If you catch yourself quantifying, well, I got to watch this many calories. I got to stop it. Just trust the process. You're here. Just trust what you're being taught for the next 6 weeks. Nightly check-in. So Alyssa is going to be Coach Alyssa will be tagging you guys starting tomorrow in the Facebook group. Hey guys, just do your check-in. And it's going to be how much did you drink your juice? Did you complete your fasting period? And what was your big win for the day? Which could be something that you did with one of your kids, something you did at work, doesn't matter. We always want to redirect our focus to the positive stuff in our life. All right, so we went over a lot tonight. That is the most intensive fasting lesson of the 6 weeks. I want you to have that basis and that background. And now as we go through this, before I do questions, if there's stuff that you want to learn about fasting, different aspects. I know some of you asked me about the spiritual aspect of fasting. I will cover that stuff. I will go over the energy of fasting. That's actually what the second Panda book is going to be, mainly largely on how fasting releases these energy stores within the body. But if there's anything that you want to learn about the brain, about habits, don't hesitate to let me know, because I'll put it into the lessons. All right, what questions do you guys have? Just unmute yourself if you have a question, and I'll do my best to answer. Go ahead, Ange.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Are we gonna do weigh-ins also? Like when are we able to, I should say that the right way?
Yes. Yes, good point. So we'll remind you towards the end of the week, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, do your check-in. So go to one of the gyms, put your 8-digit ID in, on the InBody, ask a coach if you need to, and get your check-in. So we want to look at that. And then next week, I'm going to go over biofeedback as well. So I'm putting more of an emphasis on that than I have even in the past. Biofeedback is going to be, so my point to you about biofeedback is, okay, let's say we're not seeing too much on the scale yet, if that's what your focus is, but your energy is improving and your sleep's improving, your attitude's improving, then you are on the right track, right? So it's always got to be a culmination of those two things. So yes, a weekly check-in, guys.
Will one of the coaches be able to help me set up a new ID?
Yeah.
Because I have like 3 different numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem. What else we got, guys? Everybody's clear on what they're doing. So at this point,
I think Lewis had a question.
Where you at, Lewis? Let's see. Just unmute yourself, Lewis.
Hey, I was just curious because I have the pills, the juice pills. How often should we be taking those a day? Because I know you said you when you went on your hike, you were like popping them.
Yeah.
So should we, because I know the bottle says about like once per day, but I don't know if that's gonna.
No, you got to do more than that. Yeah, I would do, I think the serving size on that is 2 pills maybe, but I would be doing at least 6 to 8 of those pills a day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. You could do less if you're doing the juice mixture with the water. What else we got, guys? Some things to note, well, it's top of mind. It is getting warmer out. This is a great time of year. That's why I haven't done the Panda in a while, but the reason I placed it at this time of year, it's a great time of year with the sunlight and warmer weather to get maximum results out of the Panda. It's slower moving when we do it in the winter. But where I was going with that is, you might, if this is new for you, or you still might be experiencing this after, even if you've been doing this for a while, you might get chilly. You might get cold when you're doing your 48-hour fast. Completely normal. That is completely normal. I can tell you that my tolerance for cold has improved the longer I've been doing this, and that goes away. Like the first winter when I was doing this, it'd be cold when I'm doing my 48s, because again, the blood is going more to the stubborn fat areas, away from the limbs, which means they're going to get colder. So that's something to keep in mind. The first 48 you do is probably going to be the hardest one you ever do, because you don't, and you're almost done with it, right? Because you don't know what to expect. And the reason I have you guys start with that is so we knock out all the fear, all the misconceptions that, oh, I'm gonna melt if I don't eat for a day. You're gonna see that you're gonna be fine. Now, when you break your fast tomorrow night, a couple things with, if you're doing too much juice for your body, right? It's not dangerous, but you might get diarrhea. Water follows sodium. Okay, I'll be teaching you a little bit more about sodium. That's common. We could cut that back on a dose. The salt also has a very cleansing action, though, as far as breaking up stuck fecal matter in your gut. So that's something that could be going on too. Now, when you break your fast after a 48, if this is especially the first time you've done it, again, this could go on for a little while. It'll go away. You might have to run right to the bathroom when you first start eating, right? Most people are not used to putting food into their gut when it's been empty for 2 days. There's just stuff to keep in mind. It is nothing to panic about. This is completely normal. This is part of the process. Right? And all these things, as your body gets used to them, are going to improve. What other questions have we got? All right, guys, if there's no other questions, we will begin tagging you for your check-in tomorrow. I think you all have my number. You can text me at any time. If I need to hop on the phone with you, I'm happy to do that. By tomorrow night, you'll be done with your first 48 or your first 48 of this Panda. Again, don't hesitate with questions. When you do your check-in, I'll put my number in the group, take a picture of it, text me your check-in. So I can just put it right into the spreadsheet. And something I'm going to do this go around is each week I'm going to have a Panda of the week. Somebody that's putting in a lot of effort. It's not just going to be based on numbers. Sometimes I will look at the numbers as far as that goes, but there's going to be a Panda of the week, and I will have some type of giveaway each week that person gets as a little reward. All right, guys, if there's no other questions, you guys have a good night. I'm looking forward to the 6 weeks with you guys. Catch you later. Later, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Kyle.